And welcome back on the bench, extraordinary viewers. Here's that mystery watch again. We're going to work on disassembling it today. We're going to take off the different bridges and gears. You can see here you've got a major bridge that goes across the train. You've got the drive and the ratchet gears there, the crown wheel and ratchet. And here we've got the crown wheel screws, these tiny little things. These come out. Let's take that out first. Now this is a pretty modern pocket watch as they go. You can tell that because the stem actually winds the mechanism. They moved on to a counter rotating screw on this crown wheel, but for now you've got these crown wheel screws and a crown wheel washer. Really, really beautiful stuff, but these guys come right off. I shouldn't say that the screws on this look like they're pretty sticky. So we'll clean all those. Yeah, now this unscrews. The crown wheel washer unscrews. And there's the crown wheel. And yeah, there is no oil under here, so this has just been dry fit for decades. And now let's go after the ratchet wheel. The ratchet wheel has a very interesting screw. It's got two pins in it, and I'm using this old pair of tweezers to finish this last turn. I was able to devise a tool to loosen it. Now the ratchet wheel under here is pinned with a square pin, so it is going to take very careful lifting so that we don't bend either the ratchet wheel hole or the post. So I'm going to just wiggle this screwdriver around the edge very, very lightly. This isn't even denting anything or trying to pry anything up. What I'm just trying to do is to loosen it from the secured position that it's been in for so long that it's rusted. You can see the top of it's got rust on it. So there it is. Okay, now that it's lifted, you will probably no oil under there at all. Yep, there's the rust. And yep, there is zero oil. There's no oil on any of this. Alright, so the next thing we're going to take off is that lovely bridge. The train bridge. All this just to try and get that balance off. Might as well loosen all these screws that I think I'm going to need. And all of these are gummed up. I mean, when I say gummed up, I'll take one out and I'll show you. I'll put it under a microscope and you'll see what I mean. You can barely see the threads on these. They're so gummed up and they stick to the holes even though they're not engaging the threads. So here, check this out. Well, you can see right here that none of the threads are clean. And that's either oil or corrosion. I'm not sure which. But I had to clean these, and that is not easy to not mess up the threads. So I'll bring a picture up here under magnification, microscope, and you can see that I've cleaned the threads as best I can. And I'll move it into frame here. There we go. That's a tiny screw. So I've cleaned the threads as best I can, and in it will go again, and they screw in much easier. So back to this bridge. I'm prying on either side but I'm not putting a lot of force on it. Remember, we had to take the cannon pinion off just to get this bridge off. So there it is. It just wants to. So this has been serviced often, or these bridges wouldn't come off. There's the back of it. The bridges wouldn't come off that easily. Yeah, so let's pull the center wheel out here. It looks like a number of the wheels overlap each other in this design. So I'm going to have to take another bridge out to get that wheel out. But I think that I can take the bridge out. I mean the balance out right now. Yeah. So my original goal to take the balance out, I can do that by just taking out that center bridge train and removing the center wheel, which then lets me unscrew this. Alright. Alright. Oh man, sometimes you don't want to force these because that balance is so big and so weighted. I'm sorry you got to look through my glove right here. There it is. There we go. Sorry about that. So yeah, so I want to get this pallet fork out of here eventually. That's the last thing, and it all seems to be laying on top of this. So next comes the third wheel. Right there, and I think I can take that out without taking the fourth wheel off. Yeah. Alright. Set that aside with a screw. And then, you know, this watch I found out was actually Swiss, and it was a pretty big movement. You can see it's got no oil on it as we dive down into this fourth wheel and the escape wheel. It looks like the escape wheel is actually trapping the pallet fork with a circle around it. I did some research, and this one movement is a relatively well-known Swiss high-end movement. So you can tell a lot of the work, but it wasn't the highest of movements, but it was a really, really good one for the time. Maybe not a Bentley, but certainly a Mercedes. Everything's jeweled, and these bridges come up pretty easily. Okay, so there's the fourth wheel bridge, and let's see if I can get this slipped right back into it, and that's a good sign. That's a good sign. That means it's been serviced often if it slip in and out of its pins easily. So that's the fourth wheel, and that looks like it won't come out until I take the bridge off of the escape wheel. Alright, well, let's take that. Yeah, that screw is just as gummy as the rest of them. These all are going to need to be cleaned. A little prying. A little crying. No, I'm kidding. Alright. Alright, there it is. Okay, so that's the bridge for the escapement wheel. There's the fourth wheel right there. And the escapement wheel is pinned by this really small circle that extends past the pallet fork. I don't know if you can see this, but it's not going to come out until that pallet fork comes out, and I got to take the bridge off of that to do it. These are nice and big, these screws. Sometimes these screws are super tiny. On the old watches, these were just pins, and you would regulate the watch by moving those pins back and forth until you got the desired beat error modifications. Very primitive. I've broken a few of those pins, and you can replace them, but in my opinion that just is too much work. So this is the so that screw is not coming up. That's the problem with this, and that's why the That's why that screw kept on cavitating. There's a couple of solutions to this. I can put a little bit of pressure underneath it and hope that as I rotate, yeah, that's turning in place. Alright, so of course I do not want to bend anything, and the other screw has come out already. So I'm going to just put a little pressure on the bottom of that and see if it is completely stripped. We'll see if this is stripped. There's that screw. That's one of them. That's one of the screws. Well, I'm going to have to pry on this a little bit more. And yeah. Well, we're down to the pallet fork here, and I need to work one side off and then the other. One of the screws does not want to come out of the bridge. There it is. There's the pallet fork. And that is looking furry. Oh yeah, it is either magnetic or clinging on to the... There's the pallet fork. That is just furry with rust. And here is the escapement wheel, looking much better than that. Well, that's that. So I got that pallet fork out, and you can see here right on the pivot points there is all this fur. That is rust. That is rust crystals, and the pallet fork looks good if I can get those off without bending those pivot points, but I don't know if I can actually scrub it. So I'm going to use pith like I showed before and see if I can soak this and get the pith to do the work I need it to. The pallet fork's a beautiful piece, and the fork is okay. Thank you so much for watching. That was really nice to bring you along on this disassembly. We've already assembled this, and we know whether it's going to run or not. But watch the reassembly, subscribe, and I'll let you know when I post it. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope this is as fun for you as it is for me. Thank you.